Welcome, everyone, to today's episode. We are going to brew up a conversation with Franson today. Welcome, everyone, today to Coffee and Christianity. I'm your host, Adam Kruse, and I'm here with Franson. It's good to have Franson here. Me and Franson go back. How many years do we go back, Franson?
Let's see, maybe 3 years. 3
years.
4. I don't know. I think I've been here before 2020 because I remember when 2020 happened.
Okay,
I was there. So
it
longer than that.
So 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. We really got acquainted after 2020.
That's true. That's true. So Franson and me are good friends. Go way back, and often our discussions revolve around broken people.
Yeah.
And that's going to be our topic today. So I guess kind of outlining first, what the situation is today with church, Christianity, and broken people, and kind of some of the failures we could include in that.
Yeah. And
then what needs to be changed from our perspective.
Yeah.
So tell me what you see. Why don't we start with you, Franson? What do you see in that realm? Like, where would you start that conversation?
I would say right now, currently in our, I don't know, what I do see in churches and, even fellow Christians, I think, if we're going to talk about broken people, we probably would start with the people that are on the other side of that, right? So the people that have gone through some brokenness or just more experienced Christians that have a little bit more weight under their belt, a little bit more knowledge. And I think what's happening here is that that's not getting passed around, right? So before we even get to broken people, someone might even listen to this and say, I don't think there's broken people in my church. Well, that's the thing. That's not being passed around. No one's talking about their brokenness to even open up the conversation. So that other broken people could be like, hey, I am actually struggling, from this right now. I have a, wayward husband, wayward son, or there's, certain addictions, drugs, porn, whatever, going through right now. And I feel like nobody else is going through that. One thing that I have learned in my experience is that no one's going to open up that conversation till someone does, right? So, so that I think that's so the current state is that there is not a conversation that so that I think that's where we are.
Yeah, so when we're talking, even you mentioning that reminds me. So when we're even talking broken people, there's probably some people that are going to be out there like, well, what do you mean by broken? But you mentioned a few of those things. It's either a past conflict that's happened that either they're still struggling with or they just haven't recovered from, or something they're currently struggling with.
Yeah.
And you mentioned a few specific ones, and everybody has a past in a way. But you're right. So we have an issue going on in church today. I guess, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I've been in church my whole life, pre-birth all the way through. And again, I've been in a very conservative type of atmosphere. And my experience growing up it was a good one, but it was almost like I never heard anyone's problems in church.
Yeah.
Like ever. Like I never heard someone tell me, hey, I'm struggling, or I have doubts. I mean, I had all those things inside going on, and I had things going on at home that I had problems with, but it was almost like the Pandora's box. Like, okay, we don't talk about this, and we pretend like none of these things happen.
Yeah.
And that was never said. It just was a mindset issue.
Exactly. See no evil, do no evil. Like it's a weird, exchange. And these are not like, how do I say? I don't know. Like, they're not like terrible settings or anything like that. There's great people at said churches and all that stuff. And it's just, I don't know. It could be a part of maybe Christianity that we've lost. Probably has more to do with our relationship with Christ more than anything. But even with like strong Christian, you ask them like, hey, go invest with someone else, and it'd be like, what do you mean? Like or like I said, you might hear this and you might say, oh, I don't think there's everybody's pretty happy at my church. There's nothing going on. That's not possible. It's just not, I'm not saying that it's not possible. I'm just saying there is, if you are witnessing to people, bringing in new people, right? If you are doing the things that God commanded you to do, there has to be broken people in your church. They are necessary for growth, for others and for you, those that are a bit stronger. But yeah, so the current state is we don't talk about it. We don't see it. We don't talk about it. And whoever does, he must be the person that has the issue. Nobody else is. And we are seeing a bit of that, newer modern Christians are reaching out to social media to talk about their issues. Like I saw a video of a woman about my age, and she was just saying that I don't feel like a Christian, and she had quite a bit of views on that, just comments of people disagreeing. But there's nobody on the other side to interact with that, because those comments are not going to go a bit far. So she needs somebody in real life, a woman that's been through what she has, and we all been saved from something, so there has to be, and that's willing to invest in her.
Yeah, and I think starting there, the concept of, we talk about what are broken people, and broken people are just struggling, having issues, some kind of issues.
Yeah.
Why are people broken? Well, that, no one should be surprised by that, because we all, before we came to Christ, before we got saved, and even after we got saved, have a sin nature, sin issues. So it shouldn't surprise us. What's weird is that people don't want to talk about it. And I think there might be a few reasons why, and maybe this would be a good thought discussion. Is one reason I've heard parents mention, well, I don't want my kids or the younger generation to see what I was involved with. And maybe because it would give them an idea to do something, or it would show. But technically, when you think about that one excuse, that's actually not a good excuse. Because what's happening is you're saying, well, I don't want them to know what I was involved in or what happened to me. There's a fine line between rejoicing over what you once did and being sorry for what you once did. But if you are sorry for it and you tell them that, as you're describing it to them, what you experienced, it really is, it's great for the next generation. It's great for the next generation to say, wow, my dad's broken too. Because the kids often, they don't hear a dad or a mom or a Christian counselor, a Christian leader in the church talk about their issues. I think what you have is I'm the only one that's broken. They're all perfect.
Yeah.
And then it naturally adds into your well, I'm just messed up. I'm just crazy.
Yeah, I must be different. I must be an alien. Yeah. So why has God forgotten about me, and everybody else is getting something that I'm not getting? Yeah. I'm out of Christianity, and it's, it's just, it's a crazy cycle. It's a very crazy cycle, but it's one that, I don't know, it just seems a lot of people are not aware of is happening at all.
Yeah.
Well,
and let me give you a personal story about how this works. So even when in church one time, I gave a testimony about my past and my past addictions. And I just shared, I didn't share detail. I just shared, hey, this is what I did. This is what I went through. I watched things I shouldn't watch. And I was addicted to seeing filth and lusting. And I had some sincere Christians come up to me afterwards, bothered that I mentioned it. Not because they didn't know I had that struggle, but they didn't know if I should say anything about it. Should we really say that from the pulpit? Should we really tell other people what your weakness is? But this is the issue. This is the mind that has to be changed. Yeah. Because again, me saying that doesn't lift me up. It actually humbles me. And it actually, one is it's convicting to me, because I'm I'd rather have the perfect life. But that's impossible.
Yeah.
And not only that, but me testifying of it, one, it gives a level of sincerity so the people see it. And they're like, oh, wow, even that guy struggles? And it's don't look at the tie and let it deceive you, you know? And then also I think what it does is it elevates what Jesus did for us, because when he delivered me from that, or he saved me from that, that what a testimony it is, you know?
Wow.
So, but I give you that story because it shows us how people think.
Yeah.
Like people think, oh, don't share
It's
that.
a liability. It's not a.
Yeah.
It's not a strength.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be. It should be suppressed and hidden. It shouldn't be exposed. And in Scripture, I think the greatest example, and I've told you this before, I think the greatest example is that maniac of Gadara.
Yeah.
Because after Jesus heals him, he says, hey, go and tell people what great things I've done for you. And this was the man who was, I think it's Mark 5, who's cutting himself. He's demon-possessed. He's literally naked. He has supernatural power when the demons were possessing him, living in tombs. And he tells him, yeah, go and tell your friends and loved ones what I did for you. So part of that story of him going back is going to those neighbors' houses and saying, hey, you remember me? And in their mind, they're seeing the guy that's naked, the guy who's possessed, the guy who's crazy. And part of that story is, look at what Jesus has done to me. He brought me out of that wickedness and debauchery, and he rescued me. And now I'm in my right mind. Now I'm clothed. Now I'm trying to reach back out to my family. I'm trying to restore that relationship. But that story, like you can't, telling what Jesus did for you included the bad, or else there would be no power.
Yeah, there would be no power. Yeah. You saying that out loud, just now I was thinking maybe that's probably part of the reasons the gospel has lost so much of its strength these days. You just don't hear the past. You hear, and it's very vague when it's given, and then you don't even hear what's currently happening. Like, I know I have a after salvation, and then after I was saved. Okay, before salvation, after, and then current. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like I was saved from this. Okay, and then after that, this is how my mind and my life changed. And here's what I'm still struggling with today, and that makes me a human being. That makes me, and other people, and you see anyone else, saved or unsaved that's hearing that, it's so much of a relief. Like, okay, I don't have to put on this act. All right, well, I'm struggling with this. Help me. What verses can I use? What did you do during this time? And then now there's there's another part of their testimony to be gained, a power to grab from the Bible alone. And then they're able to testify to anybody else. And that just goes on and goes on. And, your church would just become not a nursery, a hospital of,
broken people.
Like it's supposed to be. And that will lead to more prayer. That will lead to more testimonies and lead to more people witnessing gospel. It's definitely not a liability that it's made out to be. And what's crazy is that, I can't even say made out to be. It's such a taboo thing. It's like, it's in the air, but nobody talks about it. Yeah. So it's not like there's a campaign out there, to not do it. But you could just tell, I don't know, everybody has, I don't know. But so I guess, now what's the mindset that we would like, these people to have towards?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what's the mindset? Well, in a perfect world, or what would Jesus's church, if it was perfect, look like? And not that it ever will be perfect. We know that, but that we could start taking steps in the right direction. And part of that is, so I think part of it has to be, just a complete mindset change, that our stories, however dark or gruesome they are, do not elevate or lift up the sin if we share them in a way that includes the darkness of the sin, and the rescue of Jesus. Instead of it being a negative, it's a positive. But that's a mindset change, because people just don't think that's the case. For instance, I talked to one man about this the other day, and he said, I've always been afraid of addressing what my kids watch on the internet with them face to face, because I felt like, well, what if I'm the one that starts their mind thinking, if they're not into it, but then I start talking about it, maybe they'll start thinking about it and then they will do it. But that's not the right way to think, because one is they're already into it anyway. Let's not lie.
Yeah.
But then two is it's you're thinking I'm going to wish this into existence. So the best thing I could do is just like shut my mouth and never say anything.
Yeah.
But that doesn't work. But so it's a mindset change. I think that's the first step, is we have to alter the way we think about broken people and realize, yes, hearing someone's story, there's going to be dark spots. Okay. There's going to be things that you would say, well, that's crazy. you know?
That's tough.
Yeah. It's tough. It's tough. And some of it you can share publicly from a platform setting in the church. Some of it you can't, because it is so personal or illegal that it's like, we can't put that on the front cover, you know? But teaching people brokenness is normal. Teaching people, we don't rejoice in our sins and failures, but when we're talking about it and we're lifting up Jesus Christ, really it's doing the opposite. It's humbling me, and it's lifting him up to say, look at what I've done. So I'd say first step is probably a mindset change that people have to go through. And would you say there's more than, would you give another point to that, or you think that's the main?
Yeah, I think all the way that's the, a mindset change. What would need to happen to really see that? And I'm kind of like thinking in my head, like, okay, so, we don't have this is not China. We don't have like a concentration camp where we're going to bring a bunch of Christians and make them rethink. So alternatively, how do you tell somebody to think differently without insulting them? And, these are going to be older. They're usually going to be older people. They're not going to be like, they're definitely going to be older than me 9 times out of 10. So it's like, because the end goal will be an action, right? So it's not like, okay, if you did change your mind, if I make you aware of this, there's no way your spirit's going to just be like, there's an action it's gonna cost you something. Yeah, it's gonna cost you your peace. It's gonna cost you your comfort. It's gonna cost you something. Yeah. So,
that would be a good question too. Is what is the end goal we're trying to get people to think about or to do? So we need a change of mind. But you're right. If it only is a change of mind, what good is it? Yeah. So we want a change of mind that results in action.
I'm wondering if the action comes before the change of mind, or
probably or if nothing else. Well, no, I was going to say they probably both go together, but no, I do think the action comes first, because, so here's the way it works. I think in Scripture, one of the Proverbs says, "Commit thy work unto the Lord, and thy thoughts will be established." So it's, I will do what's right, and then my thinking will work its way out.
I'm like, that's even a harder point to sell.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, I guess so we do go back there and say, okay, so we're telling people, do right concerning broken people, and your mindset will change concerning broken people. Yeah. But for them, that's like, but I don't think that way.
Yeah, I don't think that way yet. Okay, so you want me to get involved with this person who's like, they might rob me blind, after I invest in them. Okay, well, that's going to teach you something.
Yeah.
That's gonna teach you something for next time. Something like that.
And that goes back to, so what is the action? What action steps could people take to say, I want to change the way I view broken people. I want to change the way I handle broken people.
I think the first would probably be prayer. If you're going to take action, you would pray, hey, God, can you show me a broken person? Okay, God might be like, hey, you're the broken person. You need to go get some help, But hey, God, show me a broken person. All right, start off there, and once you start with there, and then you see that person, probably another prayer of like, okay, help introduce, so we could start a relationship. Now the action, the prayer kind of solidifies it, because once you prayed about it, if it's in God's will, and it's definitely God's will that you reach out to people, not everybody thinks and acts like you, right? So you're going to be exposed to something, and it's not going to be, it's I don't want to like. It's not gonna be something that's like, hey, you're just gonna, take, your toes and dip it in and stuff. If you put God involved, it's gonna be something that's gonna change you completely. Like
Yeah.
He's gonna want to come out. He's gonna want you to come out of that experience a bit closer to Him than you are going in. So it's going to be beneficial in that way. But how that goes on, don't know. But you're going to have to start with prayer. That's going to be the first action. Then introduction. You're trying to build a relationship with this broken person. Whether they're saved or a sinner, you're trying to build a relationship with them. If you already know some of the struggles that they're going to, I wouldn't start off by like throwing their struggles in their face. I'd start off with your problems. Like, hey, you get to know them. You take them out to lunch, or I don't know. Church usually doesn't have enough time for you to break down those type of walls. But you take them out to lunch, you learn what their name is, and then you start talking about your issues, your problems. And then and naturally, if you pretend, I can't say pretend, if you act like who you're supposed to be in God's eyes, which is not you're not in heaven, right? So you're not like perfect. You still have your flesh, right? So they will naturally open up to you. And if you don't think you're like a right fit for that person, get somebody that does, but don't mark it off. At least make an attempt. It sounds like a selling point, but really what you're doing is doing what Christ did with the 12 disciples. You're getting people that are not perfect, and you're investing in them, and that's the only way. I think that's the biggest way Christianity can grow. Really, is you replace yourself. You got to be able to replace yourself. You just can't die and then you got to be able to replace yourself. Invest in someone. It doesn't take too much. You don't have to 5-10 people. Focus on one person. You will learn so much. You will be teaching them, but you will be learning a whole lot more about yourself and God because of His patience with you. And so first start with prayer, then hi, how you're doing. Introduce yourself, get to know them outside of that, and don't be afraid to share your problems, what you're suffering through. The times where you didn't have it all, so that they're able to open up about theirs.
Yeah.
I'd say those three.
Those are great steps. I think those are really good.
Yeah.
And I agree. Prayer will start even if you don't feel like it.
Yeah.
Prayer begins to start to ask God's help
Yeah.
in that matter, and He will. He'll start open your eyes and start changing your view of other people. Prayer is great, and then like you said, reaching out to people, connecting with them, and I think part of it too is like I look back in my life and think that. See, I was so, I guess this has been a slow burn in my life because I grew up so sheltered, and praise the Lord for it. I grew up with a very, my very protective parents, but I didn't know half the problems the world had, and when that eye-opening experience happened for me, okay, I'm independent, I go to college, and I start hearing like what people are doing and what they're saying and what they're thinking and like the sins they're involved in. And I was like shell-shocked. Like I was like, yeah, I mean, I know I have my problems. I'm like, I have issues with lust and things like this, but I didn't realize the world's out here going crazy.
Yeah.
And then, but it still didn't affect the way I viewed people. It did open my eyes like, wow, people are sinful. But it didn't change. I didn't change my viewpoint until I think I realized, I think you're right though. Now that I think about it, what changed me, my thought on broken people, was just getting involved in their life and starting to put your hands in their situations.
Yeah.
And then it opened my eyes to like, wow, for instance, there's been times where I'm helped a homeless person that was struggling, addicted to this, addicted to that, had all these problems, and I just did it because I was like, you know what, this is what Christ would do. Now, was I feeling like it? Well, no. In some ways I wasn't, but I was like, but this is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But then as you got your hands involved in their life, some of them you could help, some of them you couldn't help, some you
Mhm.
couldn't get out of their problems, other
Yeah.
ones you could help out of their problems. But man, your heart started to like burn for them, you
Yeah.
know, and you were like, man, I wish you would let me take care of you. I wish you
Yeah.
would, you know, I wish you'd grow in the Lord. I wish you'd get saved or whatever it was, whatever stage they were at. But it changed the whole way you viewed broken people.
You really do. Like they're treasures. They
Yeah,
become
yeah.
like treasures just waiting to be found.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. Yeah.
So, and kind of even transitioning off of that, I think it would also be good to address, okay, so we're wanting people to change action so their mind will be changed.
yeah.
But part of that action that probably also has to change, and we've talked about this in the past too, is the way that people handle broken people. So
Yeah. So once you have one,
yeah, and for instance, like even when somebody comes into church and they're broken,
yeah.
or you know, and usually they stand out like a sore thumb.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
And that's no offense to them.
Yeah.
It's just they're going through the trial, you know,
Yeah.
and they come in looking for the hospital doctor help.
Yeah.
And sadly, there's a bunch of, you know, perfected Christians in there
Yeah.
that are like, oh, wow, I can't believe you struggle with that.
Yeah.
But sometimes you hear some of these stories, or I've heard them personally, ways that people handled broken people. And instead of mending them, they almost, I don't know what the right word would be, but they prod them almost. Like, and I think they mean well. Again, I think, and maybe we've all done it in the past. Maybe I've done it. I've probably been guilty of it. But we think that maybe if I like prod them to do better, that's the answer.
Yeah.
But for a broken person, prodding them is not giving them the answer.
Yeah.
You know, being like, well, you know what? I can't believe you missed last week's church service.
Yeah.
That's not helpful. That's the dagger to the side.
Yeah.
Like, well, yeah, well, I mean, and maybe it is true that church would help them, but it's the way it's brought across that's not helpful.
I definitely think for those type of scenarios, like, you know, people, like, you know, that I could think of that happen to do that, they don't really manage broken people. You know what I mean? It's not like they're in contact with broken people. It's just more like, oh, well, two different scenarios. Okay. You know, an example would be someone that's they are interested in dealing with broken people, and then they're handling it wrong.
Mm.
But the conversation is like, you know, it could be that, but the conversation, I know, like off the top of my head, like most, I don't know, like the people that do that, like, you know, that I could think of my head, I'm like, they don't handle broken people really. They're just, you know, they could mean well, but you know what I mean? They're not like people that are like, hey, I'm out here and I'm praying for this person. They could be, I don't know, and I want to invest in their life type of people. You know what I mean? They're just, I don't know what the, you know, I would, it's definitely a section I call in my head, people who think it's embarrassing not to know. That's the category in which I put it in. And, you know, the whole point of it is, you know, of this is not to, like, you know, segregate your congregation or anything like that. But there's certain people who think it's embarrassing when you don't know something. And that's not just for church, but like at work and stuff like that. So if somebody asks a question or they're struggling with something, and then instead of helping, they think it's embarrassing. Like, how could you not know this? How, like, why haven't you come far enough that you know what I mean? I put it in that section.
Okay.
But I think that's more the people that we're talking about. But for the people that I do know that are investing in people, you know, they could have times of mishandling. I think the only defining thing for them is that they don't let that stop them from continuing. You know, because when you are, you know, broken people are not just an object or something. You know, it's me, it's you. You know, it's another human being. It's a soul. It's a relationship that you are building. So you're going to have issues, and those issues are great because that means there's a relationship there, and there's an opportunity to fix something. Because if you know, if everything went perfect, then they're just like you. So, so I think for those section of people, the defining thing is that when they mishandle or or they might think they do, because I think that's what happens a lot. You don't really know when you're helping someone, even though you're looking out to help them. You don't really know if it's enough, if it's not enough, and stuff like that. But they don't stop at like, oh, okay, that person received it wrong. If it's their fault, they apologize. If it's not, they don't let it destroy that connection. I think that's the key factor. They know how to. Yeah, I'm gonna give it my all, and if something goes wrong, I go back to Christ to get my refill. I'm not getting it from you because I'm not doing it for you, right?
Yeah.
I go back to Christ to get my refill, and I work on this relationship again. For the embarrassing to not know part, I don't know. I don't know what the objective goal would be. If we're gonna talk about people like that, I don't know what the. I don't know if I would be interested in saying like, hey, because it's like, okay, even if they're hearing, like, if they're hearing this podcast, they wouldn't. I don't know if they would know that's them, right? Like, I don't know what the.
That's not me. That's
you would
not
be
me.
like, yeah. So like, hey,
you're talking like the church member that they don't sympathize with the broken people. Like they're just kind of.
Yeah, they might pray. I
disconnected.
don't know what the I don't know what they do, but I don't know what when talking about the other group. Yeah, so if you feel like you're mishandling, if you're that type of person and you feel like you're mishandling the person that you're investing in, don't stop, because there is no right answer. Really, there is no right answer. Your presence is enough. A couple conversations, keep them in prayer. Keep yourself in prayer when you're dealing with them, and that's all you could do.
You're right, and that goes back to, I feel like because there will be times where you can never. So let's go with the real person that's trying to invest.
Yeah,
there will be times where you can't invest enough.
Yeah,
like and sometimes some situations you would be more of a hindrance if you invested anymore.
Yeah.
Now again, it's a fine line. It's a balance beam. Because you're helping out this drug addict and he wants money from you. Well, you're like, but should I give it to him? And maybe there's a way you can find around that. So there's certain situations, certain points that you're like, okay, I can't do anymore because I know this is getting manipulated, but I'm still here for them.
Yeah.
So that's helpful. Now, the Christian that, like you said, might listen, maybe they might not listen to this because they don't care.
Yeah.
But let's say that Christian that's out there going to church, and maybe they're, I don't want to be too judgmental, but maybe they're not. They don't. I don't think they realize that some of them, they don't realize that they're coming across that way.
Yeah.
So like you come into church and it's weird because their mindset. So let me give you a story. Okay, so and I've shared this with you before, but I was going to a church and I just got back from college and I invited my friend to come back with me. And I was like, he hadn't been to church in years. I'm like, hey, a little while. I was like, hey, I'm in town. Come to church with me. It's the church we both grew up in. And I knew he was going through struggles and I knew all this kind of stuff. So he said, okay, I'll go because you're going to be there. I was like, okay, great. So we show up at church together, go into the church building, and a lady met us as we're walking into our seat. Like, we haven't even sat down yet. We're walking in the back door to go sit down. And a lady said, I won't call his name, but said, hey, haven't seen you in forever. I guess you only come to church when your friend's in town. Something like that.
That's insane.
And I'm like, I'm like, are you crazy? Like, this guy just got back to church. Like, I'm trying to get this guy back. Like, I'm not sure if he's saved or not. I'm not sure. I mean, he grew up. He knows the story. He knows about Christ. But I'm not sure if it's real to him. And he finally comes back. But what's crazy is, like, for me, on the outside, I'm thinking, this lady has lost her mind.
Yeah.
But what's crazy is now I think back about it, I think she probably thought in her mind, well, this little stab is going to help him realize he needs to be in church more faithful.
Yeah, it's a jokey joke.
Yeah, so the way they think about it is like, I'm just teasing.
On that topic, I think that is actually, can I say the crutch of the embarrassed not to know Christians is church. I think that is 99% of their hindrance when it comes to like the suffering part, because they connect church to a relationship with Christ, and I mean the building. Like I don't mean like
A real relationship.
like a real relationship. Like they connect that, like if I invite somebody to church, that's it. And I think that's like even giving way too much points, because it's really rare that you'll see them do that. But it's like I go to church, and you should go to church, and you should have no excuse to not be in church. And if you do, it's because you're less, I don't know, or what. But church seems to be I don't know what to call it. Instead of being the, hey, hurtful people, people that are messed up and stuff come here. It's like, I want to keep my church clean. I want to keep my, the friendships that I do have in my church, I want to keep them clean. Yeah. And so let's limit how much of baggage we're going to, so instead of church being
a hospital, it's become a cemetery now.
But that's in their words.
Yeah.
So in their sentences, if they're ever reaching out to a broken person that they see struggling, it's what's going to come up is you have been absent in church, or something that has to do with church. But their final goal is not, So if we could, if the mindset could change to where like, hey, if you're listening to this and you absolutely, like, when you see someone suffering, your first thought is, can I invite them to church? Can we change that to let me build a relationship with that person? And I'm telling you, they will, they will come on the other end as people go through these type of things. I know personally in my experience, I go in and out just depending on like how bad my mental state is. Like I really don't like smiling in front of people's face, and that is something that like I know for sure I have to like work on. I can't even say work on, because I don't have the strength to really go where it's like I should be able to be like, I don't know, but I don't know.
It's but you're right. So going back to that before you get into the next part, because it's the mindset of, and this goes back to part of the issue. For them, a perfect world looks like you come in faithful to church, which I'm all about faithfulness to church. Yeah. But that's more important than even how you're feeling or what you're going through. And then two is they think that if you did come, it's going to fix all your problems. Yeah. But then when they come, what they find is sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes they find, well, they don't find help for their brokenness.
Yeah, they don't.
Because we've presented, come to church, it's going to fix your problems. But then they get there and there's no broken people in their mind. There are broken people.
Yeah. So the selling point would be, hey, come to church, it's going to fix all your problems. Suffering person understands it as, if I'm going to come to church, I got to be as perfect as you. So I'm going to stay away from church till I'm perfect, and then I'll come to church. And then when they do come, if they're not, right, if they take the advice of the come to church to fix all your problems, and then they do end up coming, the embarrassed to not to know section is definitely going to have a problem with how much people are coming to get their problems solved. And it's a crazy dynamic, but thank God for those that are willing to invest. I'm pretty sure, there's some rewards in that for heaven. You're investing in someone's life, and in my experience, people that are suffering, that do get saved, or that come out the other end, man, they're powerful Christians. They're amazing Christians. Just in our church, the Hines. Yeah. Got to hear some of the things that they're working on. Like that's awesome, man. That's stuff you could tell to somebody, make a grown man cry.
Oh yeah, no, and that's
Yeah.
and so and those are really good points. I think so. The concept of changing our actions. We've mentioned a lot of different concepts in this talk. About prayer and what are we doing, but even for those people that your mindset is so skewed that you can't even, you're not realizing. So you have to start thinking, okay, the greatest help I can help them with is caring and connecting. And yes, ultimately church is a part of that, and comfort and help.
And how about for the people that are suffering? What advice do we have for those that are, hey, they're suffering, they're in a church right now where they're going through things and they might not feel like.
Yeah, so what we say, okay, is the church they're going to, I guess part of the question would be, is the church they're going to helping? Like, are they the type that are helping broken people? Or are they the type that are pretending like they're not broken people? Because the advice I might give would be different. You know what I mean? So that's hard. And maybe they're in a church that has both, because most churches have both.
Do have both. You're going to have few that are helping, and then
you do
most that are not. But
yeah,
most church do have at least.
So if I was the majority of broken people, I would say for them, the hard part's going to be realizing, although people don't share their brokenness, and yes, the church needs to be turned and have a new mindset, they are broken.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care what they present themselves as. Like, they can wear the tie, they can smile.
Yeah, that only proves.
Yeah, it doesn't prove anything.
Yeah,
it's
only proves that they are broken.
Yeah. Because every person's broken.
Yeah.
And hence why Christ had to come. So it might be painted up really nice. It might be, they might even deny it.
Yeah.
They might even be unsaved, self-righteous people that pretend that they're not broken. That's a whole nother topic for another day.
Yeah.
But if every genuine Christian is broken, has been broken, is still continuing to get out of their brokenness, and even after we get close to God, we realize, oh man, I'm broken at my deepest part, because I'm still sinful.
Yeah.
So I would encourage them, okay, one, alter, for them, they also need to alter their mindset. You're coming into whether they are acknowledging it or not, whether they're helping you or not, you can make a difference by just incorporating yourself in those people, because you're the one that's broken. They are broken. You're the one not ashamed to talk about it. They are the ones ashamed to talk about it. And that's not going to change until people sympathize with one another, until they see your story. And I say all this like it's going to be easy.
Yeah,
it's not going to be easy.
not.
And it's going to be a lot of challenges, because you're still going to have those little daggers of people when you come in and you've had a rough week, or you've been gone for 2 weeks because your depression got the best of you or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're going to have the lady at the back door.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know why I say lady. Maybe it's a man, but
Yeah.
some reason every time it's a lady in my
Yeah.
circumstances. But regardless, whether it's a lady or a man standing at the back door, and they're going to give you the jab, they're going to tease you, and you're going to be like, okay, why did I even come back? That's our first thought, But you got to get past all that, because again, it's okay, I'm coming, and that's, I guess, the church house and the body of Christ it's problematic already, because you're coming into a group that is all different mindsets, all different stages of life, all different stages of spirituality. So, but you as a broken person, I would say it's going to be harder for you than it is for even those people that have the mindset thing, because for them, they don't even realize they're doing it. Like they're just thinking, oh, I'm just encouraging them to, but for you, you're going to be bothered and bothered and bothered. So you just have to learn to, I need it, and they need me, whether they realize it or not.
Yeah.
They need me here.
Yeah.
Because
Badly.
Yeah, badly.
They don't know it. No, they're going away.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And part of that, and I guess, and part of this, which kind of tags back to another point we mentioned earlier, part of the reason why I think people don't want to hear about it, or they don't want to open that Pandora's box, is I don't even think it's so much that they don't know these things happen. They know they happen. They know people have struggles. They know people have bad pasts.
Definitely.
And they even know they have bad pasts. But I think we mentioned earlier about how you mentioned it, how part of it too is that we need to keep our church clean. But I think what I know a lot of parents are like this. They're under the impression of like, but if I hold my kids back from this, if I don't show them these things in the church, or if they don't, could it be that if this drug addict comes into church, that my kids might also fall into drugs? So they get this mindset, like, and not just with that, but any type of sin.
Yeah.
So to protect them, they feel like, well, if we just distance ourselves from these people, we can't tell them not to come.
Mm-hmm.
But if we distance ourselves from them, then one, it protects my kids, and then two is whether they stay or go. If they do stay, maybe they'll get right. If they go, who cares?
Yeah, that's definitely the mindset that I'm seeing a lot. But you know what? Every time I think about this situation, so like families that do decide to do that, their kids don't even end up staying at church anyways. Just because it's just like, you're telling me all these things not to do, but I've never seen one person who's gone through that.
Yeah.
And it can't be as horrible as you say. Yeah. What happens is that the child just ends up being less of an evangelist, that natural Christian authority, in your soul that calls out that, hey, this person needs salvation, gives you their testimony, that starts to go away because nobody needed it when I was growing up. And I'm going to start doing what I want. Now, usually these kids don't go off the rail or anything, but they just go just enough that the second generation will be gone because they don't have a I'm not going to say testimony, but they don't have a after and current testimony at all. It's just...
Yeah, it's almost like trying to protect our sphere of influence or our kids or whatever, trying to protect them actually does the opposite.
It does.
And it propels them into it.
Yeah.
Because hearing some of these stories, it would change the way you were like, oh, I don't want to mess with that. Look at the struggle that he's going through or went through.
Your wife is a good example of that because her dad took her door knocking, so you get firsthand to see hear all these horrible stories, and now you know what to stay away from. You know that it doesn't start with an addiction. No, it starts with a little thing. It becomes something greater. Yeah. And all these people around you with these type of testimonies, and they're yelling it out, man. They're going out there witnessing to people. You know for sure what you want to stay away from, and that's where the power is in. Yeah.
In case in point, so for instance, I grew up, sheltered from, alcohol and that type of thing. But even growing up, I had the temptation of like, how bad is it really? I mean, I know it's against God. I know it's not biblical. I know I shouldn't be drunk. But you're like, okay. But now that I think about it, I've never heard one person in church talk about their problem with alcohol. Not one. But the greatest lesson I ever learned about alcohol was actually when I went, me and my wife were in the emergency room with our firstborn daughter was going through some breathing issues. And we're sitting there in the waiting room, and these people came in, and the lady had a ding in her head and was bleeding and stuff. But they were all drunk, her and the 3 or 4 people that were with her. And they start yelling and cursing at each other, going crazy, like literal crazy. So much so that the guy jump kicks the lady in the wheelchair right in the chest. And then they're all like flipping out, and the wheelchair's going everywhere. Awesome. And the guards come down. Yeah, guards come down. They usher everybody out. Only the lady that's, it's like, yeah. It's like, I'm thinking, and I'm just shocked here. Like, okay, did I just see someone jump kick somebody in a wheelchair? Like, what's happening right now? But it opened my eyes to like this thought of, I never realized what alcohol would do to some people. Yeah. And it gave me a perspective that I'm like, wow, I don't know how I would behave under those circumstances, but it's not even worth the risk. It's like, that's ignorant. Mm-hmm. But what's crazy is, why isn't it? Like, why haven't I heard a testimony from someone in church that had a life experience of that? And they're saying, hey, I just want to let you know, I've been delivered from this. And this is how ignorant I was under that influence. But again, what do we have? We have churches that have, and Christians that have sheltered and said, oh, but we don't want to open up those ideas to them. Yeah. But if you could show somebody what I saw in that hospital room, there'd be a whole lot of children and young people that say, I don't want to ever do what they just did.
Yeah.
So it's almost like we have, I don't know, I guess we've, under the guise of trying, or the disguise of trying to protect our children and others in church, we've thought, okay, well, let's just distance ourselves. And then those people, instead of getting help, they just drift back out.
They do.
And then now they're not helped, but they've been to church, and they feel like church is either hypocrites, or if they're not hypocrites and they did somewhat care, they still have not found their answer.
Mm-hmm.
So what they need is they need people that care,
Mm-hmm.
connect with them, and then are willing to invest.
Yeah, those are the three things that definitely, if you're hearing this right now and you haven't done, those are the three things that you should do. You know, care enough, pray, go invest, you know, and keep on praying. You know,
Yeah.
it's going to cost you something, but you know, Christ suffered, and I really think that's like if you are investing in broken people, you are on the fast track of feeling like, you know, what Christ has felt on earth, because that's what he did. He dealt with people, lots of broken people. You are on the fast track. Christianity, Christian as a whole, we need to get to the point where we just understand that we are not the center of the universe. You know, you will learn a whole lot more about yourself by dealing with others than you will ever looking inward and trying to deal with your problems. You know, for people that are suffering, that are listening to this right now, you know, maybe you're looking for answers. You know, maybe you're, you know, a bit depressed in a certain area of your life. We definitely will have something for you. Right now, we're just, you know, talking about those that are outside of that, or think that they are outside of that. You know, trying to get into that, trying to lock in into that site, and you know, just don't know where to start, or didn't even know that was a thing that's going on. And I'm telling you, every church has this, and not a single church that I've ever been to does not have broken people, and people that have no idea that there is broken people going on whatsoever. So I think it would be beneficial, not only beneficial, but like a very godly scene if churches around America would just sacrifice their time, their day, and invest in the youth, the elderly, whoever is struggling, so that, you know, so those testimonies could come out. Like, in Christianity, that is like the bulk of what you have is your testimony. It is your testimony. You can go to the Middle East, I don't know, South Africa, I don't know, middle of a desert plain. If you have your testimony, you know, you might not have a church, you might not have a Bible, but you have a testimony, you can lead somebody to the Lord. You know, there's power in that testimony, and we just don't have anybody talking about it right now. And I think a lot of it has to do with then we would have to talk about that taboo. What's the taboo?
Yeah.
Brokenness. Like, what?
Yeah. I don't want to tell them I was broken.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right though, and that's where I think coming full circle. So part of it, how another great way for us to change, to add on to what we mentioned earlier, is sharing your testimony and stop being afraid of the brokenness you had in the past.
Yeah.
Because even you sharing your issue is going to open up other people, and it's also even going to open up your mind. Like, hey, look, I'm going to take off. I'm just going to say, hey, I have it. I'm broken too. Don't
be afraid to share your testimony and whatever you're going through right now, because we all have a right now. You know, God didn't stop working with us after we got saved, so we all have a right now. And if you haven't had victory over whatever it is, talk to somebody about it.
Yeah.
You know, it's
normal.
It's normal.
It's normal.
Yeah. It's so crazy that, like, you know, outside of church, you can find, like, you know, a group of unsaved people just sitting down and talking about their problems. Like, why could they do that?
Yeah.
When, you know, people that have Christ in them are so, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah. Well, and then also to mention to those that might be broken And maybe they're even curious because they haven't come to faith yet, or
Yeah.
they're kind of in a weird middle ground here. And maybe they'll even watch this or listen to this and think, yeah, I'm broken. And they're all talking about how the church should include them and how we got to help them.
Yeah.
But for them, they're going through brokenness and they're wondering, or maybe just haven't even thought about it. Well, how do I truly get unbroken? And in some ways, we'd start by saying, you never will be perfect. You never will be unbroken.
Yeah.
But we would also say that Jesus came for broken people. And the beauty of our testimony, or what we would say is the story that brought us to Jesus, is when I found that time of, I am wicked and sinful, broken. I've had problems. People have done bad things to me. I've done bad things to them. But sooner or later in my life, and sooner or later in every Christian's life, there's that point where we found Jesus saying, come unto me. If you come unto me, I'll forgive you. You come unto me, you can be healed. And we look at that and think, man, I'm still broken. I'm still the scars never go away.
Yeah.
But I also can testify and say, yeah, but I've come to him.
Yeah.
And he's alleviated some of my addictions. He's helped some of my problems.
Exactly. You definitely, if you are, struggling with any addictions, or, you feel like you're in deep depression and stuff, you definitely, to a certain extent, you shouldn't want to be all fixed up in a way. First of all, no one is, and that will never happen till we are in heaven. But whatever you're struggling with, whatever you're getting victory, or you're on a journey of getting victory, or don't know where to start, and you're trying, put it in your mind that how you're feeling right now, when you get to the other side, somebody else is feeling exactly what you're feeling like right now. And part of this is not just to solve your problem, it's to, whenever you get to the other side, that you're able to give, somebody a fast track to where you're at right now. And you're gonna, if I struggled with drugs, okay, something I've struggled with is porn. So if on the other side of that, I'm going to be able to talk to somebody about the lusts, the fornication and all that stuff, of the stuff that goes in your head, and how to deal with that, and what verses to look at and stuff like that. That never leaves you. It's gonna be a part of you, and it's a superpower at that point, because you have Christ. It's a superpower. You are able to reach certain people that other people can't.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be something where you're to the other side, and now you become the embarrassed to know people. Now I'm too savvy. I know too much. I've done it all. You guys could have all that. I want to keep my perfect family picture on type of thing. No, you should have sympathy for people that are behind you, that are struggling with that. Because what happens is, I think what I've noticed, at least in my experience of talking to broken people, is each of them are at a place where I left at some point. You know what I mean? They might be they stopped there or something. They put I don't know, saved or unsaved. If they're not saved, I don't have any real remedy for them other than Christ, right?
Yeah.
But it's kind of like say if I meet a drug addict, that's just because he spent more time there. You know what I mean? He spent a whole lot more time there, and now he's messed up.
Yeah.
Or somebody that's still in watching porn and fornication all the time and stuff like that. That's just because they're still there. They fell at a spot in which somebody else helped me through. So you should have, I don't know, if you're reading your Bible, following Christ, you should have a heart for those people. It shouldn't be hey, I'm suffering, and my goal is to not suffer later, and the only way I could do that is by staying away from everyone. No, dude, that's not the goal. The goal is to give somebody else a hand and pull them through. If you've seen social media, if you've seen like the world right now, we're only going to have more and more of these things happening, and the answer still is going to have to be a relationship with Christ, and you are one of the first relationships that resemble Christ, and let's wherever the rubber meets the road, let's do something about it.
Yeah, and I guess that kind of wraps the conversation up to where I think it gives a good end, so it's change,
Yeah.
and yes, you need a mindset change, but that can't happen until you're willing to change your actions.
Yeah.
So start changing your actions, start praying.
That's a whole lot like salvation.
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah, it is. It's and that's so for those people that need to think about this type of setting and think about which side am I on of this, I need to be the type of Christian. If you are a Christian, I need to be the type of Christian that's investing in broken people, because I'm broken, and because they need me. Yeah. And then for those people that are the broken ones, and they don't even feel like they're at the point right now they can invest in somebody else because they're like, I'm like in shambles.
Yeah.
Then you know what you need to do. You need to get plugged in. Keep getting closer and closer to Christ.
Listening to our podcast every day won't do that. You got
No, it's you're gonna have to have a real relationship with the Lord. So, and if you do that, you'll be right.
Yeah,
you'll be right. So, so I think there's some great steps there, and I think it gives us a good ending point for today's thought and podcast. But dealing with broken people is part of it. Mm-hmm. Part of it's changing our perception of broken people. And realizing you're broken. Yeah. I'm broken. So if we could get there, church would be better.
Do you think off the top of your head you have like a chapter or book in which the side of like, I don't think I have broken people, or I want to be the person that's investing in them? I think we will deal with the suffering later on.
Yeah, because that's a whole. There's a lot of materials on there. For the person that what's weird is I don't know if there's ever something that I read that I thought, oh wow, that surprised me.
Yeah.
But really, what changed it for me was just like what we mentioned earlier, just getting involved, like talking to people. And then part of that too is what I did was I even watched a few YouTube videos of broken people, people that were just describing their problems, and I was like, wow, these people have been through some stuff. I was like, man. And then I started thinking about my life, and I started thinking, wow, well, I've been through some things. Yeah. And then I started thinking what I put other people through in my life. And then I was like, wow. I'm like, so it really just kind of opened my mind to like, it's everywhere, and we all have it. And so I think for those type of people, there's not a remedy. There's not a book, at least that I've known.
Yeah, if you're going to invest in people, the remedy and the book is the experience.
Yeah, experience. And when you experience, when you get the eye opener, you go talk to a homeless person that's living in 100-degree Florida weather in a tent that has nothing, and they literally have no bathroom. They have problems of maybe their alcohol consumption and all these issues, and they look rough. They look like their life has took a toll on them. Yeah. The more you talk with them, the more you'll feel for them. So it's really go out, do.
Yeah.
Go out, talk.
Yeah. And if you're like, I don't want to go out to homeless people, I promise you there's broken people in your church.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I say, even, whether it's the homeless, whether it's somebody in your church, and even, and it doesn't even have to be those. It could be the more you connect with people, you can talk to anybody, and the more they open up to you, be like, hey, where'd you come from? What's your life story? What's your testimony? What problems did you have in your life that Jesus has saved you out of? And even having another Christian go back through where God brought them from, it'll again open your mind, and you're like, wow, that person's And so it's a lot of just, you cannot. It's an experience. It really is. It's an experience. It's not you can't teach it on a paper card. Yeah. You really can't even give a verse of scripture. It's
its own reward too.
It is. Yeah. It's go out and get involved.
Yeah.
Go out and see the masses, and I think in fairness, even Jesus' ministry was like that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was, I mean, obviously he knew it all, but he went out and interacted.
Yeah.
He saw the brokenness and he was moved with compassion.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, if that was Jesus' pattern, maybe we'd do better.
Amen.
To just go out and see them.
Yeah.
See them with, wow, what are they going through? What are they experiencing?
Yeah.
They're hungry. They're lepers. They're struggling. They're addicted. They're sinners. And then all of a sudden we're like, wow, okay, they're broken and they need me. They need Christ, but I'm the voice of Christ on earth. I'm here to show his word. So broken people change our perception, and then let us learn we can do something together. If we could just get those points down, start changing the mindset of the average church, what could be helped? How great would that church look if when broken people came in, they had a family to love them, and we had bringing them into the body, and let's heal them up. It's a hospital.
Yeah.
So, well, it's been good today, Franson.
Yeah.
I appreciate you being on the podcast, and we have to do this again. Maybe have some more coffee, tea, water, something.
Yeah.
And next time we will maybe discuss some secondary step
Yeah.
on brokenness.
Definitely. I can't wait to do that.
Okay, well, let's plan it out.